4, 3.
Hi, fellow budding directors. Have you ever dreamed of making it in the big leagues? What about even the bigger leagues? What about leagues you've never even dreamed of? What about leagues you couldn't even comprehend? I'm Henry Pellicule, and to promote my newest book, How to Make the Greatest Film of All Time, I'm here to tell you how to make the greatest film of all time. To start, we must address the fundamentals of filmmaking. The most important part of these fundamentals is to intrinsically know them. You didn't learn this knowledge, you're born with this knowledge, and that is what makes you special and worthy of a creative voice. Then, acquire a camera and then someone you don't know the name of to hold it for you. The camera must be expensive and shoot on film, as the digital cameras do not create the look our established films have. All other greats use film, so that's what you must use too. The way the film looks and is represented is of the utmost importance and is the first sign to other intellectuals that you know your stuff. Next, ensure you have the right editing software, even though you won't edit yourself. It is important that you have an understanding of how you want your footage constructed, and editing is dependent on your plot and story. Make sure you have something to say and make sure you can communicate it to others in a way that makes sense, especially if you're leading a big crew. Once you have these established, you are able to begin the filmmaking process. Let's begin. Step 1. Be a man. It is important that you're a man to gain the respect of your investors, peers, and crew. Females mostly work behind the scenes, if in the industry at all, completing the smaller self-sufficient tasks, so we need a big, strong man to be the visionary. Your naturally deep voice and taller stance will be useful in dominating your subordinates and shutting down any ideas they may have. Paired with your natural ability to organize and lead, it is your born right to be in charge of your magnum opus. However, simply being a man is not enough. Step 1.1, be a white man. It is your natural privilege to engage in the high arts and for your work to be respected and celebrated rather than deemed an unsuccessful hobby. Just look at the greats of the past: Hitchcock, Wells, Spielberg, Kubrick. What do they all have in common? Due to your gender and the color of your skin, you are genetically predisposed to the higher analytical thought and capabilities. Use this and the opportunities that your peers in the industries will give you to gain a leg up on your competition. Safe with the knowledge that you are simply making better films than they are. However, the path to greatness is not simply just filled with white men. This is why you need to follow step 1.1.1. Be a straight white man. There is nothing worse than seeing no desirable women on screen, and no one wants to see two grown men kiss. Yuck! So with your accepted sexual orientation, we expect you to project and leave your mark on the film and ensure that hot women remain the sexual focus of your film. Moreover, being gay is a relatively modern invention in the comparison to the history of film. The era you are trying to emulate is simply not predisposed to that ideology. Tick the box regardless of how you really feel and move on. Step 2. Know your audience. Now that you have the optics and directorial point of view established, it is key that you appeal to your audience, the ones that will be in charge of making sure your piece is remembered as one of the 10 poles of film. Critics, straight white men, just like yourself. A critic can be defined as a man of the high arts who separates the films from the movies, the arbiter of all that is good and the people that will truly define your film as great. However, the colloquial definition of the critic is wanker. They judge films based on their ability to include quiet and obedient women in partnership with their exceedingly average protagonist, with some shot construction, editing, and sound design expertly made by people other than yourself. Remember, good poets borrow, great poets steal. The more your piece repurposes the artistic work of lesser-known directors, the more accolades you will receive when you claim it as your own revolutionary work. The more you appease them, the better your film, as only men like yourselves can watch, relate, and judge films accurately. Anyone else simply does not possess the ability to understand what your film will represent, so ignore them. This should remain your priority at all times when creating your masterpiece. Step 3, know your place. Now remember, you are the emperor of the film set. People only remember the names of directors anyway, so why not take credit for absolutely every aspect of it? Have an actor give a good performance? You brought it out of them through your masterful command of the set. Are the visuals of your film breathtakingly stunning? That was your finely tuned eye for the creative arts. Ideally, your name should be the biggest of any of the marketing. When people talk about this film, only your name should be mentioned. If anyone else's name gets spoken instead of yours, then you have failed and you should retire immediately. Don't be afraid to treat the crew in your film with less respect than your wife. Remember, everyone below you is relatively subhuman. After all, it adds to your misunderstood creative genius. Just look at Kubrick. All it takes a masterpiece is to traumatize your lead actor. With all of the pre-production out of the way, now it's time for Step 4, making your masterpiece. Now that you've secured your place as overlord of the set, it's time to set your minions to work. Imagine how you wish you looked. Do you have long, wavy hair, chiseled face with a strong jaw and a six-pack, with a feminine yet masculine complexion of freckled skin? Smooth yet powerful, just a light sprinkling of facial hair. Just me? Oh well, anyway. Cast your dream man in the role of the leading man, as this will not be a subtle stand-in for you. Now that your lead actor is everything you've dreamed of being, why not hire a woman who in any normal situation would be far out of your league as a love interest? Maybe you can even hit on her while she's trying to film a scene. You miss 100% of the shots you don't take after all. Now that your cast is sorted, you need a plot. And what's more gripping and Oscar-worthy story than your own life? Just make a film about a man making films. But instead of coming from a privileged roots, make your character one of those filthy poor people instead. Doing this appeals to the critics, who are obsessed with movies about themselves and can relate to the struggles that you have faced in your tragically privileged life. Your film will show people anyone can make a movie, when in reality, they can't, unless they purchase my book. Now that the last part of making your masterpiece, make it long, if you can. Fuck. Sorry. Now, the last part of your masterpiece, make it long. If you can, make it more than 3 hours, but no shorter than 2, just so future viewers can brag about how short it felt to them, with the added benefits of turning away casual viewers who can't get the time off their minimum wage jobs to watch it anyway. Step 5, revolt, repel, and repulse your audience. Every greatest film of all time has become so in retrospect, so ensure your film is so revolutionary that it is fucking hated when it's released. This is crucial. If your film is received well when it releases, it will fade into time among the many other good films. This is not what you want. Of course your film is better than good, they just won't admit it, because they hate you for being the best in the business. They hate you for your innovative ideas that they simply cannot compete with. And yet your film must appeal to these troglodytes because they are the only ones who are allowed an opinion when it comes to movies. They rank everything and list everything, but you can't compare genius, especially when your genius is just better than everyone else's. Step 6, die. The next most important step is to fucking die, because then all those stuck-up critics will finally be like, oh wow, we have to evaluate his movies because he's 6 feet fucking under, and we'll finally give a shit about your fucking film because Lord knows they couldn't appreciate your work while you were still alive. No, it has to be some sort of post-mortem, because all great work has to come from misunderstood artists who were just so ahead of their time, weren't they? You as a film director have no worth until you are dead, because no one will appreciate your art while you're alive because they fucking hate you and want to make sure that you fail in everything that you do because they are jealous of you and never want to see you succeed and reward your genius because they are simply cannot understand you are the greatest director of all time. You are God. That is why only when you're dead, they will finally appreciate your films for what they are, masterpieces of the film medium, because they're the best things to grace any generation before or after us because you're dead. Goodbye. Step 7, wait 50 years. Of course, the people in charge of the list haven't had any films on their top 10 released in the past 50 years. Why would they? Cinema apparently peaked half a fucking century ago. God forbid that they appreciate any movies here and now. They have to let them age like fine milk in order to be properly analyzed for a single fucking camera shot that some dead guy invented. So the next step is to wait sitting in your grave as the time passes you by and the people putting shit movies onto lists pick your movie as the genesis of all current films and use it as sliced bread of any comparison. No, they could never imagine your film being great when it came out. But now that 12 Olympics have happened, maybe it's finally time for your film to be taken a look at. So 5 decades after your film came out, and long after you've been buried or cremated, or shot into the fucking sun or whatever, everyone can now call it a misunderstood masterpiece, and finally call it the greatest movie of all time. Buy my fucking book or whatever. Make a fucking movie. I don't give a shit.